Okay, so let's do quick couple-minute intro. I'm going to skip regular introductory slides about our group. Like you can hear those in any of the recordings on YouTube from the previous meetups. Why we do what we do. The only thing that has changed since the last meetup is we were able to firm up upcoming events. In 10 days, we're going to have Dirk from Amazon talk about asynchronous messaging and enterprise integration patterns. And you're going to be in for a treat because some of the best brains in that world, in that segment are from Germany. And because of the time difference, it's going to be lunch and learn. So regardless of the cloud you are in, he's going to be talking about high-level architectural patterns. Then there is this, we're going to skip July for holidays. In August 15, like there is this new buzzword, CDP, customer data platforms, and there is kind of gold rush to get there. One of the leaders that created the term is a company called Segment. They've already acquired by Twilio. So they're going to be demystifying that word and like importance of that segment of the market for you. And you're going to be in for a treat then again. And I'm the old guy. After 35 years in IT, looking back, the only language that did not die, that's still there, is SQL. So we kind of named it SQL Never Dies. I still haven't firmed up the details, but with this switch from ETL to ELT with cloud data warehouses, it's like more active and more interesting than before. So that's going to be September. And then we need you to kind of suggest topics. As long as they're altruistic, helping others, you're welcome to present on our stage. And even if the talk is small, we're going to batch a couple of small talks and have a kind of group presentation session. And then if you stick to the end, we're going to have Manning a raffle drawing for any of their products. Sorry, Aurelie, but Manning was with us 4 years now. And so go to this URL bit.ly SLOTO and put the form, and we're going to raffle your name if you are with us. If you're not with us, you don't qualify. And before we turn to the feature presentation, I want to tell you, start with this quote from Theodore Roosevelt, that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And this is how I accidentally ran into Roy. So I was working on this framework, of this speech analysis framework about a year ago, and I got stuck. There was Rui's picture there, and I reached out to the author. Not only that he jumped on email to try to help me, he had a 30-minute call with me to walk me through my problem and get me unblocked. This is unbelievable. Like it just kind of, I was blown away. And then we parted away, and then half a year later, I learned he wrote the book. So I buy the book and invite him to talk about the book. But I didn't know it was a cookbook, like the book, right? How are we going to talk about cookbook like it's a recipes? And then he surprises me again. You come up with this a fusion of document processing and conversational AI and create end-to-end story like that encompasses some of the important recipes and more. And he's going to open source the toolkit and give it to the world. So you keep impressing me, Rui. Thank you. I'm honored that our paths, our lives have crossed, and I look forward to learning more from you. So please take it away.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Daniel. Let me go ahead and if you can stop sharing, I'll start. Give me a second. All right, cool. Let me put this into presentation mode. Give me a second. Okay, cool. Thank you, everyone. First, I just want to be, I'm just very grateful that you all invited me to be here, and I'm grateful that you all are participating and joining me for this session. So thank you for that. I'm going to walk through today during our session what we branded as conversational document processing AI, and it happens to have the same acronym as Daniel just mentioned. We call it CDP as well, but it's different than what Daniel was talking about segment IO. But we call it conversational document processing AI. You'll hear me often say throughout the presentation CDP because it's a lot easier than saying conversational document processing AI. You'll get to understand if you have no idea what conversational document processing is, just hold tight a little bit. Once I get further into the presentation, I'll explain, at least give you some context for what it is as we start to go through some of the demonstrations. I'm going to ping in the chat my contact information. You're more than welcome to reach out to me if you have any questions. Connect with me on LinkedIn if you want. And let me just ping that in the chat. I also, everything that I'm going to present today, I have source code for. Now, the repository is private, and The reason it's private is because I haven't applied any license headers to it. So, but since this is a community, I'm okay with sharing this within the community. But I do need to specifically assign your GitHub user ID to that repo. So in the chat, I'm going to ping a little Google form. If you are interested in the source code by the end of the session, fill out the form. All I'm asking for is your GitHub ID, and then I'll go ahead and give you access to the repo, which will contain all the source code for what I'm going to be presenting today. All right, cool. So a little bit about me. Um, so my name is Rui Costa. I am based out of well, I live in New Jersey, but I'm based out of New York City. So I do work for Google, specifically Google Cloud, and I'm based out of the New York City office. I do have one book, as what Daniel has mentioned, Cookbook. I do have a second book that should be coming out in 3 to 6 months. I'm done with the book writing it. It's going through editorial process now and tech reviews, so it takes about 3 to 6 months, depending how much edits need to be done to it. So there will be a second book coming out, and that one's more software engineering focused than the Google Cloud Cookbook, which is more generic for architecture, has a little bit of software engineering things, but more just general. Programming with Google Cloud is very heavily focused on the software engineering journey of using Google Cloud. I just want to comment that this is not, I say this all the time, I'm not marketing my books. I make no money from the books, just so you know. Um, I donate all the money to Girls for Coding. So any profits that I get from Google Cloud Cookbook or the programming Google Cloud go directly. I don't even see a check. So O'Reilly basically sends the money directly to Girls for Coding, just so you all know. So it's not like I'm promoting the books. And I have a third book coming that'll come out next year. That one is not through O'Reilly. It's completely different. It's not technical. Well, it is technical, but it's not technical engineering like this. It's more theoretical. So I'm kind of super excited about that one as well. And that'll be coming out next year. All right. So what is CDPAI? So it's not, it's the IP behind CDPAI is really two components, two services. One is what we call conversational processing, or natural conversational processing, and the other one is our document processing. And if you really think about like what CDPAI does, think about it from, let me give you a little use case and walk you through that use case, and I think it'll help you set some context. Let's just say that you need to schedule a real ID appointment. And just so you know, in the Department of Motor Vehicles in the United States, everyone's converting to real IDs. So I have to go to the Department of Motor Vehicles office, bring in some documents, W-2s, passports, whatever is required by the DMV of that specific state, and provide those documents. The agent collects the documents, scans them, stores them, and then I processes my real ID application. What we're doing with CDP is we're trying to expedite that process. With CDP, what it's going to allow me to do is go into some type of application, be it mobile, be it website, doesn't make a difference. Start the journey of going to the DMV office within the application. So what I'm going to do is, instead of going to the office, into the DMV agent or the Department of Motor Vehicles, I'm going to go into the application and I'm going to schedule a real ID appointment through there. Through that journey, through that conversation, I'm going to be providing some documents, and I'm going to be providing the same documents that if I was going physically to the location. So I'm going to provide things like my W-2, my passport, whatever other documents are required. That is what CDP is. We're basically taking two services. We're taking a conversational platform like Dialogflow CX, and we're taking Document AI, which is basically OCR, and combining them together. It's not genius. It's not really like, oh wow, this is so super cool, but it's super powerful. Meaning, we're able to take a conversation with the machine. So you're going to have a natural conversation with the machine, and during that journey, we're going to be able to allow you request documents from you. We're going to allow you to submit those documents, validate the documents are what they are meant to be, collect information from the document, and then continue down that journey, that conversational journey. That's what CDP is. It's taking two core component services, a conversational platform and a document processor. So I mentioned the core services, conversational platform, document processor. How do those align to Google Cloud? And one of the things I want to highlight here is that this is a framework. It's not a product. It's not a solution by Google. So CDP is not a product or a solution. It's a framework. What that means is that this framework does not have to have Google Cloud exclusively. Meaning, if I wanted to use a different conversational platform, like maybe the open source Rasa or the enterprise version of Rasa or something else, I can absolutely use a different conversational platform for CDP. again, it's just a framework. Since I do work for Google, when I was building this framework out, I'm going to be using Google Cloud Services, and I happen to feel that the Dialogflow is a pretty amazing conversational platform. So the core components of CDP AI, you got the Dialogflow CX, and you have the Document AI. The Document AI is a service. I'm not sure when it was released by Google, probably maybe like a year ago or so, or a little bit over that. But it basically it's OCR. But what the genius behind it, or is the IP behind Document AI, is that we have what's called processors, and the processors are built for specific documents. So we have like a processor called Identity Processor, which supports things like a passport. It supports driver's license and other identity documents. So versus you having to build your own OCR system and say, hey, I'm going to put these bounding boxes and collect this information from these documents, I now can say, you know what, I don't have to do any of that. And I'm going to rely on a managed platform from Google called Document AI that has these processors built for me. They have things like medical forms, receipts, identity processors. So I have a pretty broad use case for my services that I can leverage Document AI for. So we have the core, the IP behind CDP AI, which is a conversational platform and our document processor. Now we need those ancillary services to support it. Now, these ancillary services, again, is a framework. It doesn't have to be Google Cloud, but the framework and the source code that I'll be sharing with you if you request it is all based on Google Cloud. But you can absolutely, again, extract one of these components and say, I don't want a NoSQL database. I want a traditional relational database. By all means, you can do that. You just got to modify some source code. Now, so within the CDP AI platform, we have Cloud Run, we have Firestore, Cloud Storage, and Firebase. These are the four components that make up the platform. So we have the Document AI and the Dialogflow. Those are APIs. These are services within Google Cloud that I'm going to run my platform on. That means this is where my RESTful APIs are going to be running on. This is where I'm going to store my data on. This is where I'm going to store my data on. This is my RESTful APIs for me to interact with the CDP platform. This is where I'm going to store the user's submitted images that they send to me. And this is how I'm going to authenticate the user. And then from the UI perspective, we did build this in Flutter. So we are using the Flutter framework. And then we built a little demo application out for the backend. And what this demo application is going to allow you to do is just basically demonstrate, like from an MVP perspective, what the kind of possibilities are of the data that's collected from the user. The data collected from the user, again, are those documents. That's what's core important. And if we continue with that DMV use case, that's what's core to the DMV. That's what's important to the Department of Motor Vehicles is I want to make sure that I get their documents prior to them visiting the facility so then I can expedite their journey at the facility, providing a better customer service. So we do have, and in the source code, I also do provide the demo platform source code, which is built on React, and then our mobile application is built out on Flutter. So one of the other things I want to mention is that this is a framework, but we do have a defense publication on it. So if you want to learn more about the defense publication, let me ping you that link in the. Let me ping that real quick in the chat. So if you're interested in learning more, let me pull it up real quick. It's somewhere in here. There we go. Ping this to you. So if you want to read about it, it's not a patent. It is a defense publication. All right. So let's pause for a second before I go into the next speech, which is going to be the Dialogflow. I'm actually going to demonstrate Dialogflow for you. Let's pause for a second around the conversational document processing framework. So I just want to make sure you all grasp it. It is a framework. It's not a product. It's not a solution. The two core components to the framework is a conversational platform. In our case, we're using Dialogflow CX, but it could have been something else, and a document processor, OCR, which allows us to capture the data from the document that's submitted. Our framework requires some services. One is to store the data, so we use cloud storage. We need somewhere to run these APIs, so we're using Cloud Run, which is our serverless platform within Google Cloud. We need to store the data. besides storing the images, we need to store the data that was collected from the document. So when we OCR it, what is this metadata that we've collected, or the data that we've collected from the document? Where are we going to store it? We're going to store that on Firebase. And then we have authentication, which is we're just doing anonymous authentication, but that's just to secure the mobile application. And we've chosen Firebase for this. That is overall the framework. But let's dive into some of the components that are critical for this, specifically Dialogflow. And let's touch on Dialogflow. What I'm showing you right here is our Dialogflow CX console. And I'm not going to get into all the details because you can do a lot with Dialogflow, but the key here is that we have these things called agents. These agents are virtual agents. Other organizations might call them chatbots. These virtual agents are where you're building the graph, and specifically the conversational graph. I like to call the conversational graph the user journey based on the user's intent. So if my intent at a high level was to rent a car, I'm going to build a conversational graph for that user's journey of renting a car, which would include things like choose the car, the time, the pickup location, drop off location, time, date, etc. So let's go ahead and create an agent. And I'm just going to call this, let's call this demo agent 2 and create. Let me just change this. Just keeps flipping to my other account. And here's my demo agent 2. This is what we call the visual builder within Dialogflow CX. It's a graph, but there's only one node in the graph right now, which is called the start node. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you all can see. This is called the start node. So one of the core components is a conversational platform. Dialogflow CX is Google Cloud's conversational platform. This is where you build that user journey. And if we're using our DMV or the rental car, that journey might be scheduling an ID or renting a car. So let's build a simple conversation. Let's test it first here. Let's go to test agent and let's just say hello. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just testing the agent. So I built a brand new agent. I'm just going to say test. And it says, greetings, how can I assist you? Well, something's already configured for me. So let's kind of walk through what is configured here for me. Well, default start flow and start page. What does this mean? Well, every user starts at the default start flow, and then they go to the first node in the graph, which happens to be the start node. So that means that the user currently is right here in the start node, and the agent, the virtual agent, says something. So somewhere in here, this is configured. So let's go take a look at that. Start node. And look, it might be this one, default welcome intent. Let's click on that. And there it is. Greetings, how can I assist you? This one right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Why are there 4 of them? Well, because you want this to be a natural conversation. You also want to create a good user experience. You don't always want every time the user comes to your platform and asks you and says hello for you to always say, greetings, how can I assist you? Greetings, how can I assist you? So we create different permutations, and we'll randomly choose something within the permutations that you've written here and present that to the user to create a little bit better of a user experience. Now, to create a better experience, of course, you would do things like customization, saying, hi, Rui, thank you for chatting. How can I help you? But again, you would have to know who the user is, etc. All right, so this is easy. So it's kind of already done it for us. So let's go ahead and change this message. And let's go and say, let me delete all of these other ones just so you can see it. How can I assist you? You can say, rent a car. Example. Let's save that. And let's reset this and say hello again. And burp. There it is. Greetings. How can I assist you? You can say rent a car. Simple. And statically, all through the visual builder, I'm starting to build this journey of the user. Now, our journey, we haven't even defined it because this is just a demonstration. So we're just kind of playing with it and trying it out. But we're starting to build that conversational journey. All right. So how about if the user says, I want to rent a car? What do we do? Well, I want to rent a car. What is that? That's an intent. That means that's the user's intent. I want to rent a car. So what does that mean? That means we have to define intents. So let's go over to manage. Let's go over to our intents. I only have two, default and default negative. So let's go ahead and create one and call it rent or rental intent. And let's add some training phrases. I want to rent a car. I need a car. I want a car. And add that. And I'm going to go ahead and click save. All right, so now I got a new intent called car rental. And I have a couple of training phrases here. I want a car. I need a car. I want to rent a car. Okay, pretty simple. Let's try it out. Say hello. Okay, I want to rent a car. Oop, it has no idea what I'm saying. Well, we created the intent. Well, we didn't put it into the into the visual builder. We just created it. That's all we did. But it's not created. It's not set up in here. So let's take this out, or actually, let's add a new route in here. Let's add a new route. Hold on. Go back. Hold on. Let's add a new route, and I'm going to select the route, the intent that I just created, called a car rental intent. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to transition this to a new page. So now I'm starting to take those conversation turns. So I'm going to say a brand new page, and I'm going to say choose a location. Brand new page. I'm going to create a brand new page. Close this out. And if I close this, here's my graph starting to build out. Start and choose a location. So every time someone says, I want to rent a car, it's going to transition it. And you can see the little blue arrow at the bottom being in bold. You can see it's going to say it's going to transition to choose a location. So let's go into choose a location and let's edit the welcome message and say, this is the choose a location page. Perfect. Save that, close, and let me reset this and say, I want to rent a car. This is choose a location page. It now successfully went to the start node. And if I can, went to this default start flow, went to the start node, and then routed the user to a choose a location. Why? Because I said I want to rent a car. It matched it to this intent and it routed it to choose a location. This is how you start to build these conversational graphs. The graph can have loops in it as well. So I can have it go back to the start. I can have it go fork out into different pages, multiple pages if I want to. It can become fairly complex of a not of a conversational graph. It's up to you, or based on the intent of the user or what you're trying to take the conversational journey that you're trying to build. So let's go to another demo here. Let's go to car rental. Let's actually go look at a real car rental one. This is a car rental one. This is a more complex one. But again, it's that graph that we talked about. The user will start at the default start flow, go to the start node. Depending on the intent of the user will depend on where they go. So they either will go to the pickup location or down to contact agent. So this is what I was talking about. You can go into different directions in the graph. So let's go to start node, and we can see here. If someone says small talk agent redirect, that means I want to speak to an agent. It's going to take them. You can see the blue arrow at the bottom kind of turning bold. It's going to take them to the contact agent. If they say car rental, create a reservation, right? So it's going to take them to choosing a pickup location. And if we look at this and we added this intent, we see the training phrases. Rent a van. Let's try that one. I want to rent a van. Okay, where would you like to pick it up? So let's close this out. Oh, sorry. We are right here. Pickup location. We're in this part of the conversational graph. I'm going to say Boston. Okay. I'm now in the confirm location. So now it routed me to right here. It wants me to confirm the location, my return location. I'm going to say, yep, they're both the same. Now it's taking me off to the drop off location. Oh, wait, I messed up here. Hold on, let me do that again. Rent a van. I actually want them to be at the same location. Boston. Okay, is the drop-off location different from your pickup location? No, it's not different. I wanted to simplify this. What time and date will you pick up the vehicle? Tomorrow at 9 a.m. At 9 a.m. And I'm gonna drop it off Friday at 9 a.m. Right, and it keeps going, right? I'll keep going through the whole conversation until I even look at the vehicles and choose the vehicles. And you can see I am currently in this graph and in the state of this conversation. I'm currently in the confirm rental duration, which is right down here. So I've taken the user through all of these uh, loc- uh through all of these leafs in the graph or nodes in the graph. And not only that, that's one thing is finding out the intent of the user so you can take them through that journey. The other thing is that you then need to collect data from the user. And for me, that's the most important thing about Dialogflow CX is that the data that you collect. That's where you really start to build that experience for the user. It's one thing to build this out all statically, but wouldn't it be better to say, "Hi, can I have your club number? My club number is 12345. Hi, Rui. How are you doing today? I see you rented a car 2 weeks ago. Can I help you with that rental?" I can say yes or no. I say no. And said, okay, what else can I do for you? I want to rent a new car, and then I'll take them down through that whole journey. I've now personalized that experience. How did I personalize it? Is because I've collected information from the user. I've collected their club number. And then what I did is I then called your data, right? This would be all you building programmatically. This is where the piece of the Dialogflow can become more complex, is when you start to introduce dynamic data to it. Is now I need to call a webhook, send some parameters. A parameter is going to be the club member ID. You're going to look that up in your database, and you're going to give me back information like my name and maybe if the last rental that I had to see if I need assistance with that. That's where Dialogflow starts to become super powerful. Besides having a visual builder to build a conversational graph, it's the ability to collect data from the user and then pass that data off to some, some on-prem, another cloud provider, but something that you manage where it's your data, and then you're giving the data back to Dialogflow so it can present it to the user. Dialogflow is not a overly complex product. I do recommend when I started learning it, I started with this version called ES. They're now at CX. I do recommend spending a little bit of time working your way through the static configurations, like here, meaning don't introduce dynamic data into it yet. As you start to feel comfortable with the options available in Dialogflow, how to transition users, how to end the session, and then I would say, okay, let's start now moving into the programmatic piece of it to start introducing some dynamic data. An example is here, I'm choosing luxury options. I only have a couple of vehicle models. Let me see what I have here. Entities, vehicle model. I have Chevrolet, Dodge, Mitsubishi, Mirage, and Nissan, but you might have like 100 models, and maybe they constantly change depending on the location that the user's asking to pick up the car at. That you would want to introduce some type of dynamic data from your database. Because of that, I would say step one, let's get the conversational graph built with static data, then introduce your dynamic data because that does add additional complexity. That'll also let you feel a lot more comfortable with Dialogflow. And then in the future, you can start to say, I don't even need this static data. I know what I already need to do from a dynamic perspective. So that's a high level, and again, there's lots of courses on Google. Dialogflow. The conversational platform is. I mean, we can spend days talking about how to build conversations, but I just wanted to at least give you an introduction because as I start to go through the CDP demo, I want you to understand some of the concepts that I'm talking about. That makes a little bit more sense. So the next piece, again, what makes CDP CDP, and meaning what really brings that IP to the conversational document processing framework is Dialogflow CX and Document AI. Document AI is the most simplest thing ever. Dialogflow CX, you do have to spend some time building out these conversational graphs and deciding what that user journey is and introducing dynamic data if you need it. What parameters are I'm going to collect? What are the user utterances that they're going to say from for the intents that I'm trying to determine if the user is saying or not. And then even just from a continuously like feedback loop, collecting data, making sure that you're continuously monitoring your conversational platform. There's a lot that goes on to a conversational platform. Document AI is, on the other hand, is super simple. It's an API. You give it a document and you tell it the processor you want, and it gives you information back. There's really not much more to it. So it's the funnest one because I can call a simple API, tell it my processor is an identity. It says, okay, give me your identity document. And I give it to it and it gives me the information back. And I'll just show you a demo of it. And you could do this on, it's available publicly. So I'm going to go to US driver's license. Actually, let me do, let's see, they have some samples here. Yeah, here, US driver's license. I'm not a robot. Let's take a few seconds. And there it is. That's all it is. It's OCR. But we have has processors for those specific data types or the specific documents. And it's not just limited to what you see here. Let me refresh this. Where'd it go? Oh, there we go. It's not just limited to invoices, 1040s. There's tons and tons of other documents. The one that I really like, I think it was the 1040 because it looks like someone spilled coffee on it. So it was not like a pretty document, and it was a true camera image. And it did again. This is of course on Google's website, so of course it's going to work, right? But it just demonstrates that it does have the capability because it's using AI and ML to even with this coffee stain and being wrinkly, being able to extract information from it. These are the two core components to what makes up CDP AI. This is what when we talk about conversational document processing, this is what it is. It's the ability to create a conversational journey with the user, allow the user through that conversational journey introduce documents that need to be collected based on whatever requirements, and allow the conversational platform to manage when the document needs to be collected, if it was collected successfully, and then continue the user down the, or we call a conversation turn, transition the user throughout the conversation if of course if it was passed successfully. If it was not, then ask the user as an example for the document again. All right, so let's take a look. Let's go into the CDP AI platform. I want to move this over here so you can see a little bit better. Let's actually now drill into the CDP AI platform. Let me bring this out here a little bit more. Here, let me bring this down. All right, hopefully you all can see that. This is the technical architecture for the framework. Again, I mentioned it's based on Flutter. The framework, it doesn't have to be. It can be, native iOS, Android, React Native, whatever framework you're comfortable, whatever framework, or if you want to write native code. The framework is again, it doesn't really matter. In our case here, I'm just using a Flutter. You'll see I have Firebase authentication. I have some other components, but let's do this. Let's actually run the app at the same time as I walk you through the architecture. I think that'll be helpful. So I'm going to launch my app. And again, the source code is all available on the GitHub repo. And I'm going to click the DMV agent because that's our use case. Now, what I've done right here, I've already authenticated the user. So I'm doing sign-ins anonymously just to make it simple because people use this as demonstrations, other Googlers. So I just sign in anonymously. But I am using Firebase authentication and I have signed in anonymously. At this point, you see this little message here. Hello, I am the virtual agent for the Department of Motor Vehicles, et cetera, et cetera. And then we see some chips presented to us. I initiated this on the back end of the app, of the mobile application. When the user signed in, step one, they launched the app. Two, they signed in. Once they got authenticated, the mobile application sends a message to this API. The message it sends is just hello. That's all it does. This API takes this payload, this hello message, this takes this payload and sends it to Dialogflow, and specifically to our agent, our DMV agent. What is that doing? Well, it's the same thing as if I just did this. So, hello. Oh, wrong agent. Hold on. Here we go. Ah, no. No. Hold on. Oh, what are you doing? All right, hold on. And let me just change my account again. Okay, let me test my agent. So that what I just said, when that user clicks this button right here, it sends a hello message on the back end. I just don't show it to you. So right here is exactly the same thing. So me typing hello is exactly what this app is doing on the back end. It initiates a conversation with Dialogflow. It's initiating a session. It's creating that session. So you can see this is identical to this, minus the chips. The chips need to be visually displayed. So Dialogflow, the simulator can't display the chips. It just displays JSON. Here, I actually visualize it for you. So let's go back to our diagram. So the user types hello. So hello goes to this API. This API then sends it to Dialogflow. Dialogflow gets the message back and then the API responds back to the Flutter application with this payload. That's that journey. That's that process. Pretty straightforward. So let me click a schedule ID here. Let me just click this chip. And it says, okay, there are two parts of the real ID process, and it starts to continue down that, it starts to take me through that journey, to the graph. So let's go to my, close this out, build. Let me test agent, and let me say hello again. Here's my custom payload, schedule a real ID appointment. Let me take this, put that in here. And here we go. It's the same thing, nothing different. Okay, there are two parts to this. And here it is. Okay, there are two parts to this real ID. Again, what's happening is this Flutter application is talking to an API. What it sends to the API is there is some parameters that it sends, but the most important piece it sends is these strings. Now you could have chose hours of operation, location, schedule ID appointment. You could set up a couple of other different things as well. Even this, yes and no. That's all it's doing is sending these strings to the API. This API is on our source code, meaning this is going to be on the GitHub repo. It's running Java. It's running on Cloud Run. I'll show you that real quick. It takes that string and sends it to the Dialogflow agent, and it leverages the Dialogflow CX Java SDK. So then when you see me type in here and these responses, that's exactly the same thing here. All this session state, exactly where I am in the conversation, is the same thing. So let's go look at real quick. Let's go look at, you said the API runs in Cloud Run. Yes. Here are the APIs. I have the CX API and the Doc AI API. It's just Java. It's serverless. I don't have to worry about, how much CPU memory I have. Well, I do have to worry about the sign. I can configure that if I want to, but I don't have to worry about creating a virtual machine, managing the operating system. This is truly a managed serverless platform. It'll scale to thousands. It'll scale back down to one. So it's a truly serverless managed platform. It supports containers. And in my case, my container is Java. And you can just kind of see, you can do the loggings for it. If I click on, I think I have a kind of a welcome screen. Yeah, just a little welcome screen, no big deal. But this is Cloud Run, and this is where this API is running. And this API that I'm referring to is this one right here. I have another API, and this is a document processor. So let's walk through that real quick. Let me start this over again. I'm going to schedule a real ID appointment. I'm going to say, yep, I want to proceed. And I'm going to say I want a US passport. I click US passport. At this point, the conversational platform is still managing all of this. However, once this message comes up, this is a piece where I'm going to be able to collect the document from the user. And this time, I'm going to send that payload to this API, which is going to process it through the document processor. So I'm going to go ahead and select. I already have some photos downloaded. And I'll just select here, Frank. This is the handoff process. This is where we're augmenting the conversational platform with document processor. What's key and important is not the awe factor here. The awe should be hitting you right now. The awe is not that I was able to upload an image and capture information on it. The awe factor here is that the conversational platform is managing that for you. The conversational platform is telling you when you need to submit that document, and giving you the options for the document. It knows the document that you've selected because you've chose it. You said it was a US passport. So it knows you're going to submit a US passport. If you happen to not submit a US passport, then it would fail. Let's give that a shot and see if that works. Passport. Let's choose a W-2. Yeah, so I don't have many images here. Now I told it US passport, so it knows that it's supposed to send it to the identity processor. However, it's not an identity document, it's a W-2 document. So it says, I'm sorry, this does not seem to be a passport document. Please try again. This should be the all factor right here. This is cool because this framework is what is allowing you to manage this journey, this user journey, which is their journey is to schedule a real ID appointment, is to manage this journey to the user, but augment it with a document processor and who's managing the collection of the documents and saying if they're valid or not valid and extracting the information is a document processor, but the conversational platform is the one that's managing that experience for the user. So the other piece that we have in this technical architecture is the cloud storage and then a Firestore database. This is where we store the data. And then we just built a quick little kind of back end just to kind of demonstrate the possibilities. So let's take a look at that real quick. Let me delete some of these things I started here. And let me start a brand new journey. And let's schedule a real ID appointment. And I say, yes. I'm going to say passport. This time I'm going to select Michelle Obama. Where's Michelle? Right here. And there it is. In real time, we've are scheduling a real ID appointment. We've sent the passport so far. It extracted the passport information. And on the back end, from the agency perspective, the DMV, they're now able to start to see this data. The idea here is the demo platform is really just to show you that we've collected the data, we've collected the documents. So if we actually look at it, you can see it here. We can see here, here's the identity document. So this document is living in cloud storage. All this data right here is in Firestore, our NoSQL database. And that's it. So now let me continue. Let me say W2. And let's choose a picture. I got this one here. I just downloaded these images from the internet. Yeah, I have collected the following information from your W2, your social security number. Now let's scroll down a little bit here. And here it is. Here's the document. And then let's choose a residency document. Oh no, what is this one? Yeah, I guess let's say a bank statement. And I have a bank statement here. Yep. And it's processing it. And again, here we go. I've collected the following information from this. Now, by the way, I'm only extracting some of the information. We can extract everything. The dates here, these description, the debits, the credits, everything. I've only extracted the key information that I require. I don't care about the person's, account activity. I care about their social security number, the street address, and things like that. So this whole journey, this whole CDP framework is the ability to use a conversational platform, in our case, Dialogflow, to manage um, a user journey that involves document processing. You don't need this for you don't need CDP just for a conversational experience. That you just need Dialogflow. So if you're just creating a simple like I want to book a flight to Abu Dhabi, then I don't need to process any documents. So I would just use our conversational platform like Dialogflow CX. However, if I'm working for a financial institution, I'm doing maybe refis or refinances, then maybe I do want to collect information. And maybe refi might not be a great example, but you can collect some stuff through a camera. You have the ability to have that experience through here. A good kind of like another one too is even like a simple retail from a receipt perspective. There are tons and tons of use cases for this, but the idea is that if there's anything with a document, a physical document, this is where CDP framework can help because it allows you to augment that conversational platform with document processing. So let's do one more thing before I think I'm kind of coming up to a wrap, which is I think perfect timing, 45 minutes. Let me schedule a real ID appointment. And I'm gonna say, yep, let's go ahead and schedule it. And let's type in Lego. Lego. It has no idea what I'm saying. It's like, what? Lego? I asked you if you want to present me a document. What do you mean Lego? So let's go into Dialogflow and let's go add Lego as an identity document. So this is my agent. I'm going to go to manage. I'm going to go to my entities and I'm going to go to identity document. And I'm going to say a Lego is a birth certificate. Actually, let's just keep with the passport. And save. Let me see. So it gave me a little error message. Let me refresh to make sure. It keeps. All right. Let's see. Make sure it saved it. Yep, I saved it. There's the Lego. So now let me start this experience again. DMV agent, schedule. Yep, I want to proceed. And this time I'm going to say Lego. And what does it say? It says, okay, you can use your smartphone camera to take a picture of a passport. This is an important piece. These are the synonyms for passport. I happen to add Lego there. So if anyone says American passport, passport, US passport, US passport, US passport, different ways without a period, without whatever, it'll come out to equaling passport, including Lego. This is what's used. Remember, I mentioned when I showed you the dialog flow, I collect those parameters. This is what I collect from the user. I collect this. This is super important. So what does that mean? That means I didn't have to select this chip US passport. I just typed in Lego. Does that also mean that I can use voice? Yeah, I don't have voice on this app, but you can absolutely use voice. So if I use voice, I can say Lego. These chips are making it easier for someone to select things. So if you're on the phone, it's much easier to select a chip than type or speak. So I'm giving you some suggestions, but there's nothing to say that you can't type Lego or speak Lego or have another chip for Lego and click on Lego, whatever. But the idea here is that these are referencing a specific entity. This entity I collect is that augmenting process. That's what's kind of bridging the gap between the two because I take what they select here, this, this equals passport as the entity. This passport entity is tied to a specific processor. And then when I get that document, I send it to that processor for data extraction or OCR, and then validation that it is, of course, that document. All right. I'll share these slides with you. Just some images in here. That's it. That's CDP. It's kind of summarized before I wrap up and I open it up for questions. One of the things that what's important about what I just presented to you again, it's really this is relevant if you're processing documents within a conversation, a natural within a conversational platform, a chatbot, a virtual agent, and not live. I mean, you could definitely do it live, but this is not even a live agent. This is a human to machine, so a true chatbot, a virtual agent, as we call it in Google. This is where CDP can be relevant, is because I'm augmenting that natural conversation, or I'm augmenting the conversational platform with document processing. If you don't have a need for documents, then there's no need for the CDP piece at all. The other thing too, why this becomes like the all moment is not that I have the ability to process documents. Anyone can process documents. It's the ability that I've managed the document processing through a conversational platform. Could I have done this alternatively differently? Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you could have done it. And the people are doing this today. This is not new. What we've done with the framework is a little bit unique, meaning I've seen other platforms out there. I think one is called Iona, that I've seen. They have a demo where they kind of do the same thing, but they're managing it through the application stack. We're managing it through the conversational platform, meaning that the conversational platform is the one that's choosing the processor to send the document to. It's the one that's collecting the parameters from the user so it knows the document that it's submitting. It's validating that the document's been submitted successfully, extracting information successfully. If it's not, it's not going to allow the user to continue down the conversational graph, and it's going to say, "Oops, stop." you have to resubmit the document. All right. That is all I had for this. Oh, one more thing too. Oh, let me just show you this real quick. I do apologize. I don't write code like this, meaning like there's no readmes in here or anything. Like this I just literally just published it 5 hours ago. This has been very kind of private. But I have published it for you all specifically. So again, you all have access to that Google form. Fill that out, and I will add you in there. I do apologize that the readme, there's no readme. It's like you'll see things in the source code. Let me look at something real quick, like an example. Uh, I don't know where I find something real quick, but let's look at chat detail. You'll see like comments of code block or code commented out specifically. I can't find it. It's just because there's certain things I'm still working on, and I wasn't going to publish this publicly, but I am going to go through that journey. So I have to go through that journey of adding license headers and things like that. So the code's not the prettiest from a comment perspective, but I do promise that within the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be adding a lot of comments. I'll do all the readmes. I'm going to add some unit testing, and then I'll let everyone know as well. So I'll make a note or something, and I'll just let you all know that I've updated it. All right, that is all I had. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna keep my presentation on just if I need to answer some questions.
Wow, amazing! Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniel.
Wow, you make it look so easy. So we have a bunch of questions in the form. So
Okay.
I don't know if you can start reading some of them.
Yeah, let me go ahead.
And personally, for me, my question would be, like, we are Canadians, most of us here, and most of the documents were US-based pre-programmed. Is this document training open for us to customize? For instance, I work in a pharmacy. I'd love to customize their forms, to training for their forms to be able to take prescriptions. Can we extend that part, or it's whatever Google gave us?
From the processor perspective is what we have on the processors. So you can see here all the processors. There's a lot, right? So let me bring this up a little bit more. So for generic documents, you could just use our OCR one. That is the one that you will need to do some finessing, meaning you're going to have to know where those bounding boxes are for those types of forms that you're working with. So for anything that's not in a processor that we support, I would just use the OCR one, the easy one. But then we have other ones. We have lending ones, tons of lending ones. And yes, you might be right that most of these might be, most of them are US related, except for these now we do have French driver's license and national ID passport. So if it's not a processor that we support, you have to use our general purpose processor, or you can use our OCR within Vision, our Vision API. Our Vision API also supports AutoML, so that's where you would use that piece.
So that was my first question. And the last one from me is, I love how you annotate when you show the slides. What do you use? Like, I keep waving my hands, moving the cursor. Like, how do you show that marker?
Presentify. It's called Presentify. Let me see. Is there a little tip jar?
Is that the Chrome plugin or?
No, it's a little app that I bought on the App Store. So this is like it only work. I don't know if they have a Windows version. No, they do have a Windows. I thought they had a Windows version. But it's an app that I bought on the Apple Store.
It's amazing because we end up using Miro and then merging with images. It's just kind of tedious. So
yeah, it's but I'll send it to you.
No, it's okay. That's perfect. So anybody wants to speak up, like, you can turn on the mic and ask questions, or we can go through the chat first.
Chatter here. I do have a couple of questions. So the first is, does it support handwritten text? For example, oh no, okay.
Yeah,
and second is the language side of it. Is it only English right now, or does it support other languages as well?
So for the document processor, it's English and then French.
French, okay, got it. And I missed the first part of the question where adding a new processor, is it possible or not possible? Let's say if I have a specific document, right? Let's say pharmacy form or something like that. Now that could be specific to my use case. So now let's say I want to add a new processor. Is that possible or not?
Not yet. I know we have this concept called AutoML, which you're probably familiar with, which we do for our Vision. We have AutoML for natural language as well. And in our vision, that's where you would do some of the handwritten stuff. You would be using AutoML for that. Where basically you're doing transfer learning on existing taxonomy of data, which is Google's taxonomy of data, and you introduce your data
Yep.
set, which would be for yours specifically. For our document AI, we don't have AutoML, but we do have AutoML for Vision AI. So you can absolutely do something similar. So if you really think about what we're doing here, this is really Vision AI, right? It's our vision machine learning models that's been trained on specific data sets. And in this case, it's been trained on whatever these processors are, 1040. So our vision model has been trained on a 1040 processor data set, and then we created this processor, so we're making it easier for you. But you can absolutely use AutoML with vision to do the same thing. You just need, of course, your own labeled data set to do that. So
Right.
to answer high level, I mean, to answer your question, no, there is no AutoML for processors, but we do have AutoML vision where you can replicate what you're seeing here. Just takes a little bit of work.
Got it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I imagine you definitely need the ML for the prescriptions, because every doctor's office it comes from is a different location of information, right? There's no standard of what a prescription looks like. So
That-
that would
They
be
have
one.
that.
That would
I
be one
think
where you definitely need the ML. Yeah.
so. I think there is an extra product for healthcare that Google and both Amazon and Google have it. There are some taxonomies, SNOMEDs, line codes. You have like acronyms that nobody understands. So they overlay the document processing with those extra kind of taxonomies. But I don't know how that works. Like it's a document healthcare API or something.
All right. Let's see. But yes, Jonathan, 100%. Like I do agree that you would like for anything that's very unique to the organization, even like receipts. Let me see. I'm not sure if we even do receipts, but even receipts they can be depending how the receipts format. I don't even think we have receipts, if I
Well, I was
remember.
even thinking about bank statement. You got bank statement on there, but of all the
Yeah.
thousands of banks in the United States, are some of them not very different layouts as far as what's on the left, what's on the right, what's on the top, what's on the bottom?
Yes, and that's the great thing of that's Jonathan, you just nailed it though, but that's what's the amazing part about these processors is that
Yeah.
they have already been trained on that data source. There's you can read it. It's what's that big company out Iron Mountain. So we partner with Iron Mountain. So if you look it up, you can actually see articles about Iron Mountain. So this is a big partnership with Iron Mountain and Google because Iron Mountain does a lot of these scanning of documents, and this is where that partnership came from. And we were able to work with them to create these processors, leveraging massive amounts of like data that they already had. So it was this is why like these bank statements. This is going to work on Bank of America. What's a Bank of no Bank of Montreal? Is that a bank? It is, right? I know it's a bank. It has to be a bank. Everyone has a bank of a amazing place. So Bank of Montreal. So it's all been trained on that data source. But yeah, you nailed it perfectly. All right, let's see. We have this makes sense. Service Ontario only does the appointment booking. Okay, cool. We'll fix this after this meetup. Okay, I gotta take a look at the form. I'm gonna ping the form again. Service Canada needs this for seniors. Service Ontario should integrate this HIP. Great to see Flurry using the app. Thank you. We answered that one. Does it work? Let's answer the Q&A. Okay, I have a comment about these chatbot. Conversations. Can you mention security SPI personal information is most sensitive documents, for example, about encryption? Okay, perfect. This is cool. That's a great question. So Jerry asked about PII data. So we're collecting a lot of sensitive data, social security numbers, things like that. It's going to be really, I mean, there's going to be information that you're going to want to, of course, collect, right? You might want to collect someone's social security and driver's license to store it. And then it's really your responsibility how that is stored. We're not going to store it for you. But I will say anything in Google Cloud is encrypted in flight and on a disk, meaning when this document gets sent to the API, the data that's being transmitted is encrypted in flight. If that document needs to sit on a disk drive, which of course it will, because then our machine learning model need to read it, and maybe not depending, but I'm going to assume that it does. When that file is sitting on the disk, it's encrypted. And then it does its thing, and then it gives the data back. That document then is disposed of. We don't store that document. So from a Google Cloud PI perspective, nothing to really be concerned about, because again, the data in flight is encrypted and the data at rest is encrypted, and we don't store the document. It's destroyed after the data is returned to you. However, let's just say that you want to take this document and you want to collect information, and you want to collect information like how much money they have in their bank account, where do they spend their money on, but you don't want to store PII data, meaning you don't want to store their name, maybe their phone number, email address, social security, whatever. We do have another product called Dlp Api. That's our data loss prevention API. We can extract that. The DLP can extract information from the physical document as well as, of course, the data that's sitting in memory. What that means is that when I make a request to document AI, let's just say that I enable DLP, I would say, hey, take this document, give me the information from the document processors, extract all the information. If there's any sensitive data in there, like a social security number, do not store it, redact it. And it will not only redact it from what's in flight, but also redact it from the physical, PDF or JPEG or GIF, whatever the image is. So we do have another, that is a separate product. It will take you need to programmatically build that for yourself, but we do have the capability to find DLP data and redact DLP data. And that does support 140 info detectors. It's a global, so you'll see countries like Brazil, Portuguese, all different languages, but that is a separate product. Thank you. As a person who's built chatbots using Dialogflow before, I must say that the seamless integration with Document AI and how it ties back to the conversation was very neat. Thank you for that. Like I said, this is the best. These conversations are simple and direct, but these chatbots are frankly boring and sometimes intuitive. And sometimes people give up on the first after initiating these conversations. What can be done about this? I'll get to that. Very interesting session. Thank you, Rui. Thanks, Rui. Let's talk about security. All right. What are different documents forms it supports? So I showed you that. I can ping you that in the chat as well. Let me just ping that in the chat. These are all the processors it supports. Let me ping that in the chat so you all have that handy. All right, and let me see. That's it. Okay, so let's go back to the one. I understand that basic conversation are simple and boring. Chatbots are frankly boring and sometimes unintuitive. Sometimes people give up. Yep, I agree. I don't know who MA is, but I totally agree. Chatbots can be horrendous. However, they also can be amazing. What you need to do to build a conversational experience with the user is you definitely need conversational architects. And we actually at Google Cloud have kind of a program that we walk our customers through on how to build that good customer experience. Let me give you an example. I was this is a couple of years ago, but I went out to Las Vegas for a conference. Of course, where else would you go for a conference? Or maybe San Francisco, one of the two. And I go out to a conference, and my wife had never gone to Vegas. My son didn't. And you're like, why do you take your son to Vegas? But we get to go see the Grand Canyon, right? So I didn't take. I'm not taking them to the casinos. Not on gamble. No. But so my wife and son wanted to join me, so they came and flew afterwards. So because the company was paying for my hotel while I was there, they weren't paying for the other days. I had to do some finagling with the hotels. But my wife ended up booking the hotel for the days that she was staying, and then I would transfer hotels. Okay, perfect. I check out of my hotel and I go to check, and I said, okay, and I go to it's the same hotel. And I was okay, now I want to check into my new room. And they're like, well, we don't have a reservation for you. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have a reservation for me? And there's this massive line, right? You've been to Vegas. There's like all these people. And I'm like, it's under my wife's name. I'm like, they're like, okay, what's your wife's name? Okay, we see it here, but we can't check you in because it's under your wife's name. And I'm like, oh, well, that's not good. I didn't know I couldn't do that. So I had to get out of line, and I had a couple of options. So I text my wife. I'm like, hey, I need to check into my room. I don't want to sleep on the sidewalk in Las Vegas. She's like, okay, let me call them and take care of it for you. But I'm like, you know what? Let me just see what I can do. So go to the app. She booked it through Expedia. They have a chatbot. It's a virtual chatbot, virtual agent. They basically, by the way, I cheated. I logged on as my wife, but that's not the point. They helped her. Happened to be me, but that's not the point. And they were able to change the reservation to my name without ever having to talk to a human. Whoever at Expedia built that, it was amazing. I'm not even sure what technology they're using. If it's Amazon's, Google's, Microsoft's, Ross, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. They created an amazing experience. I came in there with a specific intent. I needed my reservation changed, and they were able to help me. I did something similar with Amazon around returns too, with Amazon's chat on their app too. Same thing. The key is you have to have great conversational architects and designers that are building these conversational experiences for the user. The way at Google that we do it is we take a human and a human, we sit them back to each other, and we allow them to have a conversation and document it. That's how we build conversations. We don't allow the people to look at each other, but they're having a conversation together. You can actually Google it. You'll find some it's design patterns like that where people take not eye contact back to back and have a conversation, document it, and then build off of that experience. And that hopefully will create a better experience. So the key really is to make sure you have good feedback loops, meaning you're logging everything, making sure where people are dropping off and fixing it immediately. Why are people dropping off? They might be dropping off because you didn't build an intent for what they're looking for. And then, of course, work with conversational architects to create that user experience. If you don't do that, I 100% agree that chatbots will be horrendous. Because I have experienced, those are two good ones I've experienced, but I've also experienced some not so good ones. Let's see. Yes, Expedia knows what they're doing online. Sometimes I look at their ad target and I'm impressed. 100% agree. Yeah, Expedia's doing an amazing job. And whoever's doing that chatbot, it's really good. I always chat it because it's easy and faster. Think about these online modules, but people don't follow through with it. Yeah, I agree. I always do chatbot thing because it's easy and fast. But I have friends and we talk about these online modules and people don't follow through with it. That is a big problem. Is that a lot of organizations don't invest 100% into that experience. I was working with Woolies out of Australia, Woolworths, on helping them build their virtual agent platform for their mobile application. They're fully committed. They're going to be the Expedia, I think, experience that, or they're going to provide the same experience that I had with Expedia for their users, Woolies out of Australia. From what the experience that I had with them, they have a fully dedicated team. I think it's live already, a fully dedicated team to supporting it, building it, designing it, building it, and the key thing, supporting it. But yeah. Let me ping this in the chat again, the form. Some people were saying that they were at. Let me just make, let me, hold on. I don't know what else to do with the form.
Form is close to you. We don't have permission to open it. So it's not
Okay.
publicly shared or something.
Let me try this one then. Let me see this. How about, maybe I sent the wrong link. How about that one? Let me open this in incognito window.
No, I got the same error.
Oh, where? Okay, so let me, maybe there's something in here. Make this quiz, responses, presentation, form defaults. Okay.
If you want, we also have a survey for the
Oh,
meeting group. We
perfect.
can share that one.
Yes.
It doesn't, and then I can share the responses back to you. Plus, whoever fills in the survey will be eligible for mining book.
Perfect.
So I can come with it for the deal with O'Reilly for you.
Except do you need the GitHub handle, not the name? Is that right?
Yeah, Jonathan, I need a GitHub ID.
Oh,
yeah.
so we don't ask it in our survey, but whoever's here, they can
I
enter
got
their GitHub, sir.
You know what we need here is a chatbot.
Yes, Jonathan. Okay, sorry. Try it again. Now it should work.
Okay. What was the problem?
I
Yes,
forgot. I
it works.
unchecked something by accident. I checked, so it was locked by default. Let me just say that. All right. So again, everyone, there's a lot of information for the session, the time that we had, but I'm still open to questions. But you have the form. Please definitely fill it out if you're interested in all the source code. The source code includes the Java APIs for both the document processor as well as the Dialogflow CX. It includes the Flutter code for the mobile application that you see here, and it also includes the front end that you see here. Very simple, but again, just to kind of create that MVP for you. And then if you have any other questions, I'm still open for questions.
So cool. How long did it take you? Like, are you back in the front-end developer? Like Jonathan remembers, we've been talking about React for years. He's using Vue. I never picked up either.
Mm-hmm.
Now there is Flutter. How long did it take you to be productive with Flutter, to create something like this?
Honestly, it was easier for me to learn Flutter than it was like React Native. I'll say that. And I'm a big JavaScript person. Right? I've been coding in JavaScript and Java, and those are my two main languages. But
Cool.
it took me easier to learn Flutter than it even Java React Native.
But the promise of Flutter is to work on desktop as well. Why did you not use Flutter for the web app as well? Why did you use React?
That was a comfort level because I actually do have here. Let me show you. It's not as simple as people say it is, right? Let me show you. Meaning you do have to invest a little bit of time into the grid layouts for depending the view that you're in. And what I mean by that is I do have in the source code, I do have a web version and I containerize it and I actually publish it out to Cloud Run. And here it is, the chat app. And you'll see it load up. Let me bring this up. This just looks like a big, massive iPhone spread across the full screen. So yes, it works. It's cross-platform. This is the same thing that you just saw on the mobile, right, for iOS. And I'm able to do it for iOS. I'm able to do it for Android and web, right? Perfect. But for iOS and Android, the layouts, the views, the view grids, how I'm building it out for the mobile view is actually pretty easy, meaning it's the same. That's truly for me cross-platform. Now, this is, yes, it's cross-platform. The code's the same. It works, but I do have to create different views to, of course, support different viewing formats. So if someone has, this type of screen, if someone has, whatever, right? So making it more, responsive. So it takes an investment of time to do it. So for me, React is so much easier. So I could just build React fairly quickly. So I'm like, you know what? I'll keep Flutter for my mobile, and then I'm going to use React for my desktop. And you can see I even have like crazy error codes here that I even haven't taken a look at.
Cool. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, Danielle, can you put the survey link in the chat again?
Yeah. Sorry, I keep enjoying and forgot. We have survey as well for the Manning book. So any other questions, guys, feel free to turn on the mic.
Thank you, Angie. Yeah, and again, everyone, you have my contact information. You have Daniel's, of course. Reach out to Daniel. Reach out to and Jonathan, myself, if you have any questions or follow-ups that you want on this. And again, I just want to reiterate, this was only pleasure of mine for this was of just showcasing some really cool stuff and hopefully seeing some cool stuff come out of you all. Because all the money that if you buy the book goes to Girls for Coding.
And
I don't have a girl, by the way. I mean, I'm married, but I don't have a boy.
So this is the book. So
Cool. Yep.
that's awesome. So I pasted the link. Can you go to this form, bit.ly/SLSTO? So we have a couple of questions, and then we're going to do raffle soon while we're still chatting. So what is the third book about? Like, is it still, like you mentioned, it's exciting and it's not?
Yeah, so it's more theoretical. So I'm excited about it because if you go into a Barnes and Nobles, you're not going to see this book, right? The O'Reilly books, but the new book, if everything works out, you will see at a Barnes and Nobles. And for me, that's exciting. That kind of like steps it up a little bit because I still like to go to Barnes and Nobles.
Nice.
But it's still technical. It's around cloud. It's like, but it's more on more all different type of personas, meaning it can be a business executive, it can be a student, it can be an engineer. It's talking about, it's basically becoming confident with the cloud. So the title is like Confident Cloud. It's actually based out of London, the publisher, and they call them Confident Series. And it's about really just making anyone that feel comfortable with cloud. And that's what it's, that's hence the title, Confident Cloud, but it's for all personas. It's not like the Google Cloud Cookbook is so focused on Google Cloud and it's focused toward engineers. Confident Cloud is AWS, Microsoft, Oracle. I don't care who it is, doesn't matter. It's just making you comfortable with the cloud. So it's a little bit different take on it.
Awesome. Any other questions? Okay, go. Yeah, bird.
I can't choose the birds. It's a Riley thing, but it's that one's an Asian eagle. The other one's a pelican. No, pelican. No, not a pelican. What's that bird that takes your food when you're at the beach all the time?
Seagull?
Seagull. That's it. Those little nasty little things. Yeah, the cookbooks are predominantly eagles because the AWS came out with a cookbook too, and they're an eagle as well, I think. So that's how they have it. And then like programming, I guess, are seagulls. I don't know.
but I didn't know about charity. Like to me, O'Reilly books are very expensive. Like hard to justify. Plus, if I need a Kindle edition, I have to pay separately.
That's correct.
With Manning, you get everything for one price.
Correct.
If
Yeah.
you pay the full.
Not all publishers do that, right? Not also, not all authors. Some authors, of course, do take it for profit. It's not a lot of money that you make, but we have at Google, we're not allowed to profit from the Google brand. So I even if I wanted to profit, I couldn't. I would get in trouble at Google. Eventually, they'd find out, be like, "Hey, you profited from this. You're not supposed to." So I just had decided right from the beginning, let me choose a nonprofit and just donate it.
Cool. So we still have time. Like if there are no questions, we'll do the raffle and everybody goes to their families. But if you do, keep asking. And for those who were in chatbots, we did have a session about Dialogflow itself. So you can go to Serverless Toronto YouTube channel.
Oh, nice.
And then how many months ago? I don't know. Last summer, we had the chat. So I'll paste the link to the full playlist here. It was Lee Boonstra. She wrote the book on Dialogflow. So
it's Lee. You had Lee on here. I know Lee. Yeah, she's awesome.
Yes. And her apps, like she liked to focus on the like airport had a problem at the time, so it was the devices at the airports that you can talk to instead of typing during type of COVID.
Yeah, Lee's awesome. She's based at I think Amsterdam.
Yes. So that was Lunch and Learn. Okay, so let's go ahead.
Yeah, really. There was a comment made about the boringness of a chatbot, and I totally agree. And it's not really all just in the conversation flow, right? Some of it is also in visual, right? Because it's just kind of like you're going through this Costa-esque form. The fonts are ugly in their state. There's nothing dynamic. There's no graphic. There's no eye candy. It's just like, and that's already associated with places like the DMV, which is why everybody holds their head when they have to do anything like the DMV, because you know it's going to be this crazy. So, what do you think about that? Is there something kind of on the horizon that can liven the visual landscape? Like, some different fonts or something like that moving or something.
Yeah. I know at Google, we publish the material UI theming, right? That's our guidance for how to build like a UX that includes fonts, colors, everything. I definitely try to follow that methodology. You can also use like Apple's, the Cupertine, right? And follow their kind of, I mean, it really depends which side you want to go to, but that's more from a prettying and things like that. But things that I've been thinking about, and you'll actually see a lot of research on there as well, is using avatars for virtual agents. And what I mean by an avatar is actually either a real human person or an avatar, and have that actually look like the person speaking. So meaning like you see me right now, right here, instead of talking and chatting with text, you're actually talking to another virtual agent, but the virtual agent actually looks like a human. So kind of like fake AI, what do they call it? Deep fakes, that kind of concept. I have been, and if I've been researching it, and if you actually look, there's actually a lot of research around there about using like human faces, and there's actually companies or startups that are doing it today, using human faces for that experience to create something a little bit more deep fakes. Yep, exactly what Sherry just said. Exactly. So yeah, that's a big thing that you'll if you research it and just do it on Google, you'll start to see some information around that.
Another thing I've seen starting as far as spicing up the chatbots go is injectable components. So like web component, JS components embedded into the chat. So as opposed to just asking a question, I saw you were doing it with chips. Like here's 3 choices, click a chip. But you can get even fancier than that. People are injecting components where it's like, here's the 5 color swatches you can choose from. Here's some sort of an interactive GUI thing where you click a few things and then you go to the next part of the conversation or whatever. So I think the companies who are getting good at it are starting to put more in there than just text, for sure.
Yeah, and I agree with Sherry and Jonathan what you just said. Like even what Sherry just said about like choosing color swatches, like letting them customize right that look and feel. But what Jonathan just said too about injectable components, that's like super important. Imagine me saying like that's actually so I built this course on Dialogflow CX internally. Well, not it's for customers at Google, and it was around something in the form of creating that conversational experience. And the demo that I do is I say, okay, let's go rent a car, and it says, let's rent this car, and this car rental is a Nissan Versa, or you can rent a Ford, and that's all it has. Let's change that experience and introduce a simple little thing, introducing an image, and what Jonathan just said, an injectable component. All I'm going to do is introduce a card. The card's going to have the image of the car, and it's going to have some information about the car, 4-door, whatever it is. That starts to create that different experience. So what Jonathan and Sherry said, I 100% agree with. That was Jonathan's comment. Yep.
Keep going. Don't be shy. So while you're thinking what to ask, I can share the screen to see who entered the name in the. Oh, there is a question. Which methodology did you mention? Do you have URL about conversational?
Sherry, let me look that up and see if I can find it, and I'll send that over to you. Give me, you all can continue.
And can you see my screen? Am I sharing?
Yeah, I can see the wheel.
So I cannot see the chat now. Anybody else who did not do the form wants to be here? I put Rui's name. Any other names?
Oh, I get to enter?
Yeah, why not? So I did that for you. Any other name? Like if you didn't want to do the form, you can put your name here in the chat and I'll paste it.
Sherry and everyone else, I just pasted in that link that I was referring to. Oh, Daniel put Sina in. And Ramen in.
Sina and okay.
Yep. And Sherry, I just pinged that link and Mary too. And everyone, just for everyone too, I just pinged you all the conversational design link that I was referring to, that by Google. Yep. And no problem, Sherry. And that is not Google Cloud. That's actually our Google Assistant. So I think the Google Assistant, like even like my Google Home, is an amazing experience. Like the card that they have, just how they have the layout is perfect. That's from the Google Assistant team. Yep.
That is awesome. Anybody else wants their name here, or are we going to do the draw? So it's any Manning product. You can choose anything you want. It can be course, it can be live learning, or the book. And you get Kindle both and a print. Sorry, not with the draw. With the draw, it's ebooks because they cannot share it around the world. But if you were to buy a regular Manning product, then you would get all. Ready? Oh, we have
one more.
Thank you.
Yes.
No double dipping here now. Let's go. Good luck. Sina.
Ooh, it's close.
That was close. Sina, you're with us? You are?
Yep, I'm here.
I need your email address pasted here in the chat. Congrats. And then what's going to happen, go to manning.com, choose any product you like, and people from Manning will move it to your dashboard as if you purchased it. So more luck to everybody next time. So I'm stopping sharing. Anything else? I just enjoyed it thoroughly. Like if you were to Google for this topic, you wouldn't be able to find these two things together. So it's a unique merger of the two. I'm going to first go and learn Flutter itself because that's why I stopped. Like for some reason, frontends always block me. And Jonathan remembers that when you told me about view conference, I still didn't attend or learn that. So, and then it would be good to define the process because you don't have the not you, but Google doesn't have these custom processes for us to build. We have to define the process how to do it through the Vision AI and then NLP
Yes.
on top of that. So that would be cool if that can be kind of like, if you can learn what's happening on that front, it's going to give more meaning to your work, because there's
Yes.
lots of people from other parts. We have people who want to put this to use in Africa. Like the forms are different, obviously. So
Absolutely.
So that would be awesome. Anything else, Jonathan, or anybody else on Stop Talking?
No, that's it. I just want to thank everyone for participating and asking a lot of questions. That's it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Rui. That was excellent.
Thank you, Jonathan.
All the best with the books. If you can help in any way, let us know.
Yep.
And thank you for.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Thanks
Thank
for presentation and the facilitating. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.